Good morning, Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise fans. How we doing today? My name is Moonblaze Wolf. I am joined here in the commentary booth by Zaru, and we are going to be showcasing a very hype match very early in this Sunday morning. We've got Eiklopfer here on the left. Uh, he is at 3-1, playing to make the bracket straight away and have a really nice seeding going into the second half of the tournament. And then on the right, we've got Aegis, who is at 2-2, basically playing for their Fabul Gauntlet life today. So that is the setup. We are here. We are ready to watch and call this match for you. Zaru, what are you looking forward to and excited about this morning?
I'm looking forward to and excited about this Edward start. There's so many things that an Edward can do. You get him early, you start looking for the things that he can help you get, and then you see what you get for a second party member.
Yeah, absolutely. Edward Start is something that most runners do not want to see. However, if you know how to handle it, and like you said, maybe you get paired up with a really solid second character, then you should be good to go. But yeah, absolutely. Not. It makes for a very interesting start to this seed for sure, especially for a match where I'm pretty sure both of our runners are probably feeling like they both need a win today.
Indeed, and then it'll make questions of grinding difficult because if you get those other characters such as a Sid or a Kane start, you're going to be looking for someone who's going to help you get through either some sirens or get you up on a dark crystal.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of variability in terms of how this is going to play out based on who that second character is. Edward himself does have a lot of utility, especially in the early part of runs. If you find a dancing dagger, he is a really solid damage character. Depending on which bosses you get, his hide ability is pretty useful, especially through I would say some of the earlier parts of the run, although later in the run as well, there's some really specific bosses that can help against. But not bad at all as long as you get the right supporting cast, I would say.
Most definitely. And then the question becomes, what are we getting for a starting item?
Yeah, I was thinking, starting item plus objectives. Are there any particular objectives or type of objectives you are looking forward to seeing in this run?
I always enjoy myself a good demist hunt. It's usually never where we're expecting it to be, and always somewhere either convenient or out of the way.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the possible types of objectives that we do get with this format as well is the other kinds of boss hunts as well. So, here from the commentary booth, we're always sort of, hoping for some sort of demist troll with a really required important item in an out of the way spot. But really, in this format, any of the boss hunts can do that. So we'll see what happens. It looks like we're off to the races here.
And it looks like we've got Yang for our secondary character,
Yep,
and a
looks like.
tower key to start.
Yep, so we got a lunar sparkle as well there. So not a lot of information for our runners. They're gonna really kind of be wondering what that could be, especially if Baron is a required part of the objectives here, which there are quite a few objectives that revolve around the Baron key. So we will see here shortly what kind of objectives and what sort of spread of objectives we get among the various kinds that are in the format now. Okay, so I saw find two characters, and then there were no boss hunts, and the rest were pretty open checks, other than Sand Ruby. Vanilla Masamune Altar only requires that you get the Darkness Crystal, which is generally required to finish runs anyway, or at least it's a big part of that usually. One of the two ways that we can get to Zeromus. And then defeating the bosses in Dwarf Castle. Again, getting underground pretty much required, and once you do that, it is a free check. So, depending on where Cecil and Kane are, this could be a pretty quick seed, or it could be a pretty long seed.
And then we saw, I believe that was Cecil standing in the Baron Inn, so we've already got that objective out of.
Yep. So Kane is the one who is remaining who could either betray the seed or make it super fast. So also Yang as the second character. What are your thoughts on that, Zaru? To me, it's making this a pretty underpowered party to start with.
Oh, very underpowered. Yang powers up as he levels. Unlike any other character in the game, gear doesn't really change him. You can help him out a little bit with, say, a bandana or a headband or a strength ring, but after that, he still has to get through to get some levels on everybody else in order to be useful.
Yeah,
But
I totally agree with that assessment.
I would also then say he gives you the ability to find a couple of elemental claws and make some generally rude bosses fairly easy if he does get those.
Yeah, so there's definitely two nice things about Yang, and you touched on the first one, which is his elemental claws. So he can fire up that punch magic, which is really useful against specific bosses. And then the second thing is he has an ability called Power, because we do have Japanese abilities turned on in this format. And Power is one of those nice abilities because it is a little bit slower, but it does do a little bit of extra damage. But more importantly, from a strategic point of view, it doesn't count as fighting, which certain bosses have specific scripts. Rubicant is a really good example of this. If you just fight against Rubicant, he will always counter with a Fire 2. But if you power against Rubicant, he does not counter because he doesn't recognize that as a fight command.
Yep. However, I'm starting to think that the one problem with this party is going a lot of AoE fights. Dark Imps will be threatening. Dolls will be threatening, at least for right now.
It is true. Although we did just find on Eiklopfer's screen, found the Quack Kid up on Mount Hobbs, so that will definitely help out with that, provided that he can get through this Octomom fight.
Well, Octomom is a very rude fight to fight in this place, but at the same time, Octomom is a fight based around how many times you can. So, a Yang might not be the worst character to have for that fight.
Yeah, this seems like a pretty important fight to get through early on, because if you are able to get through this fight intact, the XP from it is going to give Palom, I think, all of his level 2 elemental magic spells. In particular, this fight shouldn't be too horrible as long as you can get some early fight in, because Octomom will slow down as you hit him. So noticing Eiklopfer using the Grimoire there, that's a pretty good start. Get some nice damage, and now you kind of just need to start going to town with your team, I would say. So if he can get through, get a couple of these tentacles down, should be in pretty good shape.
Yep, and he actually did reset to get a second chance at that Grimoire, because his first spawn looked like an Ode, which doesn't do anything to bosses.
Yeah, and he gets through it that second time. Again, picks up all those elemental 2 spells for his Quack Kid. Going to be pretty powerful right away, and that's a huge damage upgrade for Eiklopfer, and we'll see how that impacts his ability to kind of maybe build an early lead in the seed.
And chat's pointing out, it looks like Aegis checked the bed, and we have an Uncle Mop in the bed. So that Sand Ruby now has added value when you do get your hands on.
Oh yeah, so basically there is a required Fusoya in the seed, so that'll be very nice for our runners once they're able to acquire that key item.
Eiklopfer just found a curse ring at the top of Antline, so that's going to help him out on his speed.
Yeah, Curse Ring, early on, you kind of just want to acquire one, and then it really sort of comes into usefulness later on in the seed, probably, the second half of most seeds. I did notice a Thunderclaw as well in that missed weapon shop that Aegis was checking. So, or I'm sorry, he's in Troya. My bad. But yeah, definitely picking up some useful items here.
And it looks like Aegis just found Cure 3, so he's going to be all set for a while, even if he doesn't find a white mage.
Yeah, now, and I'll just sort of say as well, Aegis is doing a lot of shopping early on. With a party like this, that's a very, very reasonable early game strategy. You don't have a lot of power. You're looking for anything that can sort of help your damage. He was able to locate a bandana. I didn't see if there was a dancing dagger, but it looks like got some bow and arrows for Edward here as well. So he's looks like about ready to go and check and get his own palom, and that should get him going as well here.
Yep, and it looks like Eiklopfer's stepping into the Antlion Cave, and let's see who we've got here.
So we got a moon noodle here, not the super rude one. But this fight is actually kind of awkward for this party because Paladin has damage reduction from elemental damage, and that's pretty much, other than that Yang that looked like a solid punch, so he'll be fine. But it's just going to take a little longer than you might be able to, like if Paladin had like a virus or something already. This would be over really, really quickly.
Yep, and we see that Aegis is now doing his squid on top of a mountain. And it looks like Eiklopfer is just going to power his way through this and hope that defending keeps every character alive on that pale dim spot.
Yeah, it's just going to be slow. It's not really threatening. But, for this particular team, so much of your damage right now is elemental that it is a little bit of a slow fight. Yeah, Swimmy Leone pointing out Fireclaw not helping. It would definitely be more beneficial to unequip that Elemental Claw at this point, because it is actually reducing the damage output. And Aegis does get through that Octomom fight as well and picks up his Quack Kid. So off to a good start here for both of our runners. I'm sure they're both very relieved to have a little bit more damage on board, and should kind of ramp up and get the power level going here. Maybe start cruising through this seed a little bit.
Yep. Now, did Aegis find exits anywhere?
I did
doing
not.
a check in back of Hob. Ooh, and he just found some money armor right there.
Yeah, I'm guessing he didn't find exits, but that was a good looting trip. Meanwhile, Eiklopfer gets an apple for taking out that pale dim. So a less than bountiful dive here into the Antlion Cave, but did pick up a bandana and got another key item check under his belt. So.
And I think most importantly, for late game, he did find that curse ring in there, so that would be the real win to walk out of here with.
Absolutely.
Now, are you hoping for a magma key seed or a hook seed?
I mean, I am always partial to a good hook seed. I imagine our runners are probably hoping for a magma key seed, but we'll see what happens here. The hook is not necessarily required, so because we don't have any like tail turn-ins, we don't have the launch the Falcon objective. So it could be one of those things too, where if it's a magma key seed and let's say Kain is the hook character, we still end up needing the hook. And that would also be a pretty interesting turn of events. I had a seed like that in one of my preliminary matches. That it was pretty interesting for sure, kind of how that played out, because I just needed the hook for the character, and it was it was another key item hunt, but it isn't necessarily one that you would expect to have to do.
I agree, but I also look at this and my big thing, That hook may not be needed, but the rat tail might hold a potential chain for your sand ruby.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of situations in which the hook is required, even if it's not required to get underground. So we'll see what we get here. Meanwhile, Fabul is under attack by a snake-armed Baigen, and he is playing rough this morning. This is a pretty tricky fight again for this team. Baigen has some built-in defenses against magic, which is kind of like the main source of DPS right now, and he hits pretty hard. So this is definitely going to be a little bit of a challenge for our runners.
Yep, and even though it's early on, we did see Aegis throwing that curse string on his bard just to slow everything down a bit.
Oh, and it looks like Eiklopfer is going to succumb to the exploding arms here. So not great. Also, just a note, as it's mentioned that Aegis has put his curse string on Edgar already. That is actually not particularly helpful early on in the game. You actually want your fastest character in the middle for about the first half of the game, and then when you get to the later half of the game, that's when you really want to slow down your party. Just as a general rule, there's always exceptions to that, but as a general rule, you want your early character in you want your fastest character in the middle in the early game and your slowest character in the middle later in the game. So, and yeah, nice roll on that grimoire for sure. Although
And then an
resets
immediate
out.
reset once he sees the apple. Looks like he wants that grimoire for something a little bit more dangerous or a little bit more valuable.
I mean, I guess if you just roll the Leviathan, you're feeling like that's your lucky grimoire. Maybe you want to keep it handy for a fight later on. All right, so Eiklopfer is refighting Baigen here. This is just one of those fights. Looks like a slightly different strategy here. Takes out one of the arms first, and then is going to start focusing on the body. That's a pretty good way to handle this fight for sure. So probably we'll find a little bit more success here if I was to guess in this refight.
Yep, and it looks like he's doing a much better job of keeping everybody up so that one arm can only take out one character.
Yeah, it's just a pretty awkward fight in general for this team because technically, I believe the body is considered back road. So, oh, gets a nice fire too in there with that first spell. So that also helps, yeah, because Baigen does not wall up until you get your first spell off. So it looks like did a bluff with Palom once or twice, and then just kind of did a little mini nuke impression on Baigen there to get through pretty easily here. So nicely done.
Yep, and got enough damage on that back arm that it only exploded for 21.
Yeah, that spot has a ton of XP for the early game, so if possible, you do want to get it on all your characters. So that was very well done by Eiklopfer there. And I missed what the key item was. I was looking at Aegis's fight for a second.
Looks like it's a pink tail.
Okay, so no progression still. So we're down to Ordeals or the Baron Inn or a Hiding Demist to get underground here.
And Eiklopfer found a second grimoire in Sheila's basement. They're trying to use all of their items for their advantage, and I cannot blame them with a seed like this.
Yeah, for sure. It has been pretty generous. I just noticed. So Eiklopfer just picked up a Boreas as well. So at least it's kind of giving out some of those good items. And then yeah, Aegis taking that curse string off, probably a good move for right now. That was a pretty rough fight, and hopefully we'll be able to get through it the second time. I will just remind everybody as well. I know Dark Paladin knows this, but the runners are on a 15-minute delay, so it is definitely not a situation where Aegis noticed or picked up on anything. Just making a very smart adjustment there and taking that curse string off. And yeah, Boreas is an AoE Ice 2, which is very, very useful. A little bit more consistent. So we did see Aegis roll a really nice Grimoire there early on, which is nice when it happens. But we also saw Eiklopfer roll a very bad Grimoire early on, which was Odin. So, um, Grimoire can be really nice when it works, but a lot of times you don't get what you want or you don't get what you need. So something like a Boreas definitely more consistent if you do need that to get through an early fight. So
Very much so. And as we see here, doing a little bit of shopping, we found life for sale. But I'm also noticing that this seed had a lot of money between the crystal armor that was found and a couple of other items that were picked up. These runners don't look like they're going to have a hard time shopping for anything, at least early on.
yeah, that is a good thing to see when you're doing a run. So and we see Eiklopfer now starting to climb up ordeals. I think that's pretty smart, considering I believe we already saw Cecil in the Baron Inn, so knows that this will be turning him into a Paladin Cecil. This team's looking pretty solid right now, so hopefully we'll see what the bosses are like here. You got 3 to get through, and a bad one could be a roadblock, so we'll see what is waiting for us up here on Ordeals. And meanwhile, Aegis is doing his refight here of Baigen. Unfortunately, I think a Star Veil wore off or something there, or maybe it was the Star Veil was on a different character that died. So that was a little tough. Eiklopfer resetting out of Mega Sisters. This shouldn't be too bad. I did notice, but when he was getting set up to go into the bosses here, he has an Elven Bow and Charm Arrows on his Edward, so that should help quite a bit.
Yep, it should. And I'm curious, because I didn't catch it, if Aegis didn't realize that a wall had gone up and might have nuked his own Yang that way.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the trickiest thing right now, because it looks like he's going elsewhere. He both times I noticed he did an AOE spell on Baigen, which is great for taking out those arms, but he's going to bring back those arms and he's going to put that wall up. So Eiklopfer definitely utilized I don't want to say a more efficient strategy, but definitely a more consistent way of getting through that fight. With the bluff and then the one big spell. So, but is struggling here with these Magus Sisters. I'm wondering. I'll have to kind of get a better gauge of what's going on here. But at first glance, this spot shouldn't be too awful, aside from that virus that just came out. But yeah, this shouldn't be too bad of a spot for Magus Sisters.
It shouldn't be, but the one thought I'm having right now is we don't really have any mage killing, and they are pretty fast.
Yeah, I think the fast is probably the major concern here. He does have an Elven Bow. I did notice that before this, so really should be able to kind of get into this fight without too much trouble. That was a nice use of that Boreas there as well before that first wall came up. But yeah, it could be another situation where the agility anchor is making this fight kind of difficult. Might want to, if it was me, I would want to have Edward in the middle slot right now, because he should be your fastest character at this point.
Indeed. And it looks like the magic at this spot is definitely nothing to scoff at either, because that kid just took a 252 point fire from that first reflected fire too.
Yeah, it's not the lowest, but it's not the worst. The second Mylon Z spot has much higher damage, so if I was gonna pick, I would definitely want them in this spot as opposed to the other side of the bridge. But yeah, this fight, there we go. Gets Cindy down there with that aforementioned Elven Bow, so should be in good shape now. But yeah, that's a bit of a tough one. We see Aegis actually looking like, barring something. Oh, like a remedy. I was gonna say, barring some sort of recovery here, should be okay, but no, that's gonna make it a little tougher now.
Yep, that remedy was started before Mindy went down, so thankfully we only had to deal with the one.
Yeah, that would have been a nice opportunity for Aegis to get. We'll see if he can still get through this fight first try, but that would have been a nice opportunity for him to make up a bunch of time if he was able to cleanly get through this Maga Sisters fight. So
Oh, and we have Antlion guarding the backside of the bridge. I don't know that I like this for this.
yeah, this is a fight where as long as you don't get taken out too soon, it shouldn't be too bad because again, Yang can use that power ability, which does not trigger the counterattack. Nicely done there by Eiklopfer, utilizing that. And you got Palom with those 2 spells, which again will not trigger the counter. So this should be pretty doable. We see Aegis taking some encounters here. This is actually a pretty good move. I did see somebody in chat mentioning that, and it is a little bit of an underutilized thing right now. There's a lot of pretty good high XP encounters on Mount Ordeals. So if you do hit a little bit of a roadblock here, you've got a not great party. Always an option to turn on the encounters and farm some XP here on Mount Ordeals for sure.
Yep, I believe when I was first going through this game, Mount Ordeals is the best place above ground to be using sirens if you do, because you end up getting that double Lamia fight.
Yeah, that fight's great. Mostly, you can throw Cure 2s on them. So every character is generally useful as long as you've done a little bit of shopping beforehand. But yeah, definitely a good area to farm some XP. Will definitely be beneficial to the Palom here as well. And hopefully we'll have a little bit better luck with this Maga Sisters fight now.
Yep, and now Eiklopfer is going to go show us what we have hiding in mirror room for an item and a boss. And we have music at the top of Ordeal.
That's pretty exciting to see because it's still an overworld check, so it could hold our progression. Also, everybody likes music, and we get Dr. Luggage here protecting the Sacred Hall. Shouldn't be too bad, but he does like to talk a lot.
He likes to talk a lot, even though between both of his forms he's only going to have 1,000. It does take some work to get through, because you can't beat them all at the same time.
That is true, but no problem there for Eiklopfer, and Aegis gets through that Maga Sisters fight with no trouble as well. So nicely done there, and considering that the Fabul spot was not progression, this could work out just fine as long as he doesn't try to go back there and keep going. So we'll see what happens next.
Now, at this point in the seed, where do you think you would find yourself going? Music first, or are you going to check that Baron in and walk out of there with a set?
I haven't been paying a ton of attention to what weapons our runners have been getting, but I would almost certainly do Baron in first because you're gonna want that Cecil for the Twin Harp fight if possible, since magic damage basically doesn't do anything there. And it shouldn't be too bad for this party to do Baron in at this point, so that's where I would be headed.
Yep, and chat pointing out that Cecil was having a conversation with some royalty over his tea at that. King and Queen Eblem were sitting at the table with him.
Oh, well, that's fine then.
Found star veils for sale in Mysidia. That's going to help everybody out a little bit, especially since we haven't seen any particularly magic-oriented bosses so far.
That's true. I did also notice those kamikazes that were sitting there too, and I'm a little surprised that Eiklopfer didn't pick up one or two, since you have a pretty good chance of needing to do the twin harp at this point, and that's an easy way to off your characters and skip that cutscene. Because the Dark Elf also likes to talk a lot. Speaking of long boss fights.
And I believe somebody told me once that if you use a kamikaze in that first phase of Dark Elf, you do get it back.
That sounds right. I haven't honestly. I don't know that one way or the other, but that would not surprise me. All right, so Cecil got glowed up while he was drinking there at the Baron Inn, and let's see. This will be a free fight here, but it'll be interesting to see who the second boss is after this.
Yep, and Aegis has made it through the Maga Sisters and is currently working on some antline.
We got Evil Wall in the second spot, so oof. Again, this is one of those fights where that agility anchor could make a big difference, because this is a really slow spot. It's going to be a little bit faster because Yang is in the middle instead of, like Edward or somebody like that. Although also an interesting thing about this spot is you could actually just hide Edward and this would be free once your other two characters were dead. So I don't think it's going to matter because Palom has that virus and is looking pretty good. But yeah, fun fact for all you Edward haters out there, he makes this fight free.
Well, Palom was popping damage until Palom got popped.
Yeah, the spot hits hard. I don't know if this is going to work out. No, I'm thinking this is probably going to be an unfortunate reset here.
I think I agree as Eiklopfer goes down at that.
So the one reason that it's actually a good thing to have Yang in that middle spot right now is it does increase his accuracy, I believe, by being the middle slot character. So there is that, but yeah, like, and again, I'm not trying to be too hard on either of our runners for any of the things that we're noticing here from the booth as far as agility anchoring. Agility anchoring is extremely complicated, and it's one of those things that I know for me personally took a really long time just to kind of figure out the best way to kind of generally go through seeds. So this is a really tough situation for our runners to be in. I know they're both trying to make the best of it. And we already did see Aegis make a nice adjustment when he realized things were maybe not ideal. And we'll see if Eiklopfer is going to need to make a similar adjustment. If he's having trouble with this evil wall, that would probably be the easiest way to guarantee you get through this fight.
I agree, and it looks like he's transforming his Eddie into a chemist and starting to throw some cure. Hopefully that will keep him alive long enough to get enough viruses off.
Yeah, the critical character here is definitely Palom for getting through, and he's clearly not going to be able to survive any punching. You really do, and this is Edward at his best. This could be a moment where Edward has his time to shine, and unfortunately, just Eiklopfer not realizing that you can just hide him. And as Chad is pointing out, yeah, he just gets to that crush phase and starts hitting himself. Or it's actually before that. Because every time he advances up the screen, he's required to attack, and if there's no valid targets, he attacks himself. I should clarify.
Yep, and for that Edward strat to work, he does have to kill himself before getting to crush phase.
Then again, virus is also really good, so we got through it, no problem.
Just needed that one more virus, and Cecil was holding a Bahamut summon.
All right, so that means our progression is either at Twin Harp or a Demist hiding in one of our available boss spots that I don't think either of our runners has checked because there aren't really any find or boss hunt objectives. So I suspect we'll see Klopfer go right to Magnus Cave, but I could also see him checking that like the demist spot or the watery pass on the way as well.
While Dark Paladin pointing out that he hopes that D-Mist is hanging out in Magus Sisters because there is no Earth Crystal, so there's no reason to check that.
Yeah, that is the third spot. I wasn't gonna invoke that one because it's always really, really annoying when that happens, but that is definitely a possibility.
And if I remember correctly, a relatively quick spot to find D-Mist at. Getting hits in before they get 3 hits in and goes down is going to be a bit difficult.
Well, it looks like he is going right to Twin Harp, so that's a good thing for us. That means music incoming. And again, if you are relatively new to this randomizer, one of the best things, I feel like I don't feel like that's an opinion. I feel like I can just objectively say that. One of the best things about this randomizer is when you do the Twin Harp check, there is a randomized music song that Edward plays. So we should get that coming up here in a few minutes.
Yep, and the other thing that makes this randomizer extremely good is something that we'll find out at the end of the season. One at the beginning, one at the end. We get all the good stuff in the middle, we hope.
And a required music seed is always great for the restream as well. So let's hope that it's a good song, and let's hope that our progression is here so that we'll be guaranteed an encore. So, as I believe Aegis did finish up Mount Ordeals there, so nicely done. And I assume heading off to the Baron Inn here shortly to pick up hopefully Paladin Cecil and continue in the hunt for underground access.
Now, I am finding myself a bit curious. Okay, Eiklopfer is. I was gonna say there's a couple of easy access chests, and I personally tend to check if I'm struggling for a little bit of armor for someone, and he does find a wizard robe, which is gonna help the kids stay up.
Yeah, I think with this, considering we talked about how much money has been in this seed so far, but yeah, you are missing a decent weapon for Paladin Cecil, and you're missing decent armor for Palom. So yeah, I agree with that. Makes a lot of sense to do a little bit more looting here in Cave Magnus.
And Aegis is making his way through the King Queen Evelyn fight. He's going to find a very rude wall standing in front of it. Be curious to see what his strategy is to get through this.
I suspect it will involve a lot of virus. Oh, he doesn't have virus. So yeah, we will see. This could be pretty tricky. But we're going to go ahead and be quiet now for a second and enjoy the awesome tunes of DJ Edward. I don't know about you, Zara, but this song is perfect for a Sunday morning.
Oh, very perfect. It's a Sunday morning brunch song if I've ever heard one. is interrupted by a rude noodle.
Yeah, this is not going to be an easy fight here. So we'll see how Eiklopfer decides to handle this.
And Eiklopfer seems to have forgotten that there's a lot of magic resistance at this spot. That virus did exactly 1 point of damage.
Yeah, this is a fight where having no white mage is going to be potentially very difficult because the two things that you want to get through the Ogopogo fight, well, there's really three things, and he's got one of them, which is decent melee DPS characters. But the things he's missing is healing and berserk. So we'll see if he can keep the team up here. It shouldn't be too bad as long as he doesn't run out of cure 2s.
Can't remember who, but I do know someone bought a big old stack of Cure 3s. They are available, and if they can't get through the spot right away, we can go back and find a way through it.
Yeah, I think Aegis grabbed a lot of Cure 2s, if I remember correctly. So when they get to this point, I think it's going to be a little bit easier. But that's also contingent on getting Cecil, which he is struggling with right now with that anchor situation. And again, had that curse string on Edward in the middle slot. I did not realize that he had put that back on. So hopefully we'll have a better outcome here with a different agility anchor.
And it looks like he's now taking the time to move all of his characters to the back row, which is definitely not a bad move.
No, but again, this is a good time to just kind of remind everybody in chat, because I know, and this is a pretty advanced strat, so I'm not, again, saying this is something people should know about, using Edward to maximum effect. But if you just hide Edward at the beginning of a fight like that, it will be free, because Evil Wall is one of the bosses that is very susceptible to Edward in terms of the way it is scripted. So will basically punch itself to death if you hide Edward off screen. So, and Eiklopfer takes a wipe to Ogopogo. Not good.
Not good at all. Looks like he's opting to go back and probably do a little bit of shopping to get through that. Or at least get a couple of levels for his Cecil.
Maybe hoping that looks like hoping that D-Mist is actually where progression is, and hoping to spike a lucky check here.
We found some Kaipo guards hiding under a waterfall.
I guess maybe just hoping for the XP here, which is, there's not a whole heck of a lot of it, but Cecil will probably benefit from, getting those 8 to 10 levels that are pretty easy to farm from a couple early bosses. So we're kind of at a moment in the race here where we're really just waiting for our runners to break through. They've definitely had to deal with some really rude early bosses. Baigen at the Fabul defense spot is pretty tricky. Octomom on top of Hobbs is also not an easy fight. And Mount Ordeals had the Magus sisters in the first spot. And our party does not have any white mage, so there's a lot of speed bumps that this seed has put in front of our two runners. They're both just sort of trying to figure out the best way to navigate through it at this point. Looks like Eiklopfer is going to opt for the shopping route, finds those Cure 2s, and I think should be pretty good to go on Ogopogo now for a refight. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him check a few other things while he's doing this tour, since he did choose to leave anyways.
Yep, and we see Eiklopfer guaranteeing that there's an Uncle Moppin for what he needs to get with that sand ruby, so he may be making a quicker retreat to that instead of not knowing who's in the bed.
And Virus would also help out quite a bit with this fight for Aegis too. And it's just his Palom is a little bit low level still, unfortunately, to have acquired that. It might be in Aegis's best interest at this point to head back to Fabul and refight that Beigen spot uh, rather than trying to brute force through this. So
And it looks like Eiklopfer found himself a poison axe for Cecil. A little bit on the expensive side, doesn't have great accuracy, but it is a weapon.
still should help a little bit. And I did notice as well, let's take note of this for later. Eiklopfer sold their Bahamut summon. So if we happen to find Rydia anytime soon, probably will be kicking himself over that decision.
Very much so. And we see that the freest of free fights, Water Hag, is hanging out in D-Mist's spot. Looks like a bunch of these early bosses just got themselves confused on where they're supposed to be.
You know, if I was a runner in this race and I just saw what Eiklopfer saw, I would be feeling so salty right now because there have been some really hard bosses in some required spots, and then you go check the two optional ones, and you get Water Hag and the Kaipo In guards. Not a good feeling.
Not a good feeling, especially considering he's the one of the two runners that knows he's got to get through a nope.
And it does look like Aegis headed back to do the Fabul defense here. So good move. One of the things about this randomizer, and I think anybody who's played it enough has kind of been in this situation before. At a certain point, you need to just kind of cut your losses and try something different. So we saw Eiklopfer kind of, take a little bit of a breather, do some shopping checks and some other stuff before rediving Magnus Cave here. We saw Aegis, after a couple unsuccessful attempts at Baron Inn, heading back here to another available spot that he has, which unfortunately is not going to be the progression that he's looking for, but it's still good to just kind of, to stop beating your head against that particular wall and try a different wall for a little bit.
Agreed, very much so agreed. And it looks like Eiklopfer's making the same choices to come back through and double check all of these treasure chests, any potential advantage he could get his hands on.
Yeah, there was definitely some good loot there. Had that wizard robe, and I saw an ether too, which is always nice to have in your back pocket for a variety of reasons. So I suspect this will go a little bit more smoothly this time, mostly because Eiklopfer picked up that big stack of Cure 2s. And I think what you need to do here is just put, for sure, Palom, but probably Edward as well on healing duty here, and just kind of let Yang and Cecil grind this fight out.
Yep, and it looks like he did get at least a couple of levels for Cecil off those Kaipo guards. 702 max HP now. Has a little bit of value to all those Cure 2s that he's going to be needing.
We get a encore followed by probably another encore. So we're gonna have a nice sort of chill time here with this Ogopogo fight. I'm just imagining that the noodle has washed up on the shores of Costa del Sol, and our party is coming out from brunch to fight this monster.
And I see Aegis on the right-hand side while we're getting our encore did manage to get himself a virus, so that should help him a little bit with that evil wall spot that he's been struggling.
Yeah, absolutely, and it does pick up that pink tail as well. Sure, feeling a little bit disappointed that this was not where the progression was, but at the same time, making some progress nonetheless. So,
I think the biggest thing for me about this seed, after seeing a whole bunch of jet seeds in this competition, we have a seed where we might be an hour and we're still above ground without a way underground.
yeah, our runners have definitely gotten bogged down. Again, based on the combination of difficult bosses and I would say lack of really healing more than anything else. But the bosses haven't really lined up well with this party's strengths either. So, it's really great when you have a Palom starting out early, but then when we fought Baigen that throws up walls, we fought Mega Sisters that throw up walls. Just there's been, and then now Twin Harp where you can't use magic anyway. This is definitely proving to be a pretty slow start for our runners so far. And again, keeping that in mind, this is a play-in match for Aegis. Aegis is playing for his life in this match, and Eiklopfer again probably also feeling a lot of pressure to come away with the win today because it will greatly improve his standing, being at 4-1 versus 3-2. So these runners both have a lot to play for, and that's definitely something that you have in the back of your mind while you're struggling with the seed. Is how is my opponent doing? How is my opponent handling these difficult situations that I've gotten stuck in? And definitely just kind of really need to buckle down and focus and get through stuff. So and we do see Eiklopfer get through that Ogopogo. So
Yep, he gets through the Ogopogo, and he does get 7 levels for his Cecil. Now let's find out what kind of a progression spot we're going to have.
and it is a magma key. So okay, this is looking pretty good for Eiklop for now, getting through that fight and making it out with that magma key. So we'll be able to head immediately underground and start poking around down there. Does give him access to objective number 5, which is the bosses of Dwarf Castle, as well as 3 more shops and a whole host of other checks and potential points of progression here.
Yeah, with all the money in this seed, I think the biggest thing for me is all of the shops that just open. Being able to spend some of that on gear that or items that may change everything, especially when you're looking for things like sirens.
Yeah, I think the biggest things still are finding a better weapon for Cecil, probably finding sirens. This team would really, really benefit from a grind. I would also be pretty tempted to do the couple free key item checks that are going to be waiting once you get underground, which is at Feymarch and the Sheila 1 check in the Sylph Cave, because our runners know that they are 1 sand ruby away from having a very powerful Fusoya join their team. And that sand ruby could just be sitting in a free check right now.
Yep, and don't forget the Land of Summoned Monsters has that free chat, which is one that I'd be curious to see what bosses are there because that none of them are required, but they may be either rude or holding something.
Absolutely. So I think it's hard to say because I can see both of these runners, if I was to guess, or Eiklopfer, I should say, you don't feel good about it being 50 minutes in when you get underground. That being said, knows that it's been a couple difficult boss checks and a pretty difficult route to get that magma key. So the question is, how much stuff do you want to kind of go out of the way to get, as opposed to just kind of keeping things tight and focused, and maybe checking some shops, looking for sirens, and then just kind of progressing with the team that you do have.
Yep, and I do believe the only place for progression to the moon is now underground, as we've exhausted most of our options.
Yeah, at this point, they have checked everything on the overworld. It's the only thing that possibly could be setting up to troll our runners would be a demist at the Magus Sister spot, but everything else has been checked at this point. And Eiklopfer headed straight for Dwarf Castle, didn't save before going in, so I think this is just going to be a shop check, but immediately finds those sirens, so we'll be able, presumably, to scramble a couple eggs if need be, and gonna do some looting as well here, it looks like, and see what else we can find.
Agreed, and it looks like the strategy Aegis went for to get rid of his wall was he illusioned his mage, and then just sat there casting fire. So he has found illusion somewhere.
Yeah, good job by Aegis getting through that fight. Not a lot of great options if you don't know about the Hiding Edward strat for that particular boss. So figured out the tools that he needed to get through the fight, and will now be heading off to Twin Harp. And Eiklopfer finding the other half of the super easy egg grind in Tamra here, finding finding coffins. So got sirens, got coffins. Definitely time to go kill some eggs.
And as we are all here for brunch, a nice set of scrambled eggs sounds about right.
And we do see the job dwarf check as well. The job dwarf is a police officer today.
Glad to know Eiklopfer knows to validate his seed. For those of you who are new, it is not required to check job dwarf. We just encourage it because he is one of the randomized positions.
Yes. And we always appreciate it when our runners in the middle of a tight race still take the 2 seconds or so it needs to speak to that particular dwarf and get that information for us. So again, this is another great opportunity here for Aegis to make up some time. If he can get through this Ogopogo fight first try, he's going to close that gap quite a bit between him and Eiklopfer currently. Does make a save right there, so already mitigating a little bit of that time loss that Eiklopfer experienced. But we'll see how they handle this spot. Looks like I think I saw a Ogre Axe in the inventory for Cecil there, so that's definitely a better item or a better weapon than Eiklopfer went in with the first time.
Yep, much better accuracy, even if it does have a little bit less damage attached to it. Getting the extra hits in is almost the more important part.
Absolutely, and we see Eiklopfer pick up the package, which is a character check. So I suspect we'll go see who is at the package spot here, probably right now. I'm a little surprised if you're popping up to the overworld here that you don't check Sheila 1 first, but maybe just doing a quick jaunt up here to check this spot. Lifing his team up, which this actually is not really required because it's a cutscene battle. You're going to end up carrying the character if you want to keep them to the Kaipo Inn anyway. So will be good if you just want to reset and leave out of here, but definitely not necessary. Oh, but that is Kane.
That means there's a required package, unless Kane is our duplicate character, in which case he could be hiding somewhere a little bit more convenient.
So so our 2 character checks, which are the most volatile of our 5 objectives, are going to be uncovered here. So no character hiding in the giant, no character hiding behind the hook or something else nasty for our runners today. Now they just need to focus on key items. Eiklopfer will need to find the Sand Ruby and the Darkness Crystal, and that will be all that is required to finish the seed at this point.
Yep, and we will check. But it's nice to see those burning down the village flags showing up as Cain was burning himself out of a. Curious who this boss is going to be, because most of the people would wish for something rude here just to get it out of the way as a runner.
If I was running, I would hope this was demissed, since the package check is already required, just to kind of get that out of my mind as well, and be able to focus on just finding those 2 key items and not having to worry about like a potential boss hunt or something like that.
And it looks like Aegis is making the same mistake that Eiklopfer made by casting that virus and getting the blaze counterattack from.
Hey, I called it.
Ooh, demissed in the end.
So that's a nice little stroke of luck there for Eiklopfer, getting that demissed. Another check uncomplicates this seed quite a bit now, so you can just focus on key item spots. Aegis is handling this fight pretty well with Ogopogo. Did throw out a virus. Old habits die hard. I will just say, as a runner of this game, you have to kind of untrain yourself to not do certain things in certain situations, like cast Palam's most powerful spell on a boss. So it happens. Seems like he is still hanging in there just fine with that huge stack of Cure 2s now. So I don't foresee any issues here.
Yeah, Eiklopfer having a little bit of a slowdown with Kaipo Lady. But now we're going to go probably check and see what that demist was holding for an item. I would also like to point out that a little bit of a quick entertainment point. Edward one-shot the demist.
Okay, so I do have to say, I was about to call that was Sand Ruby and that this was going to be the best package ever, but I wanted Zaru to be able to get his little bit of commentary in there. So yeah, I'm feeling a little bit like a witch right now. But yeah, crazy that package check leads to not only 2 of our objectives, but a Fusoya as well.
Get a Cain, get a Fusoya, you now have a white mage, you have a solid black mage. Honestly, this would make me turn around and kill that water hag in a cave.
It depends on what spells Fusoya has. I mean, the seed is probably going to be mostly free at this point, just because we've got Sirens, we've got Fu, we've got Darkness is guaranteed to be on the Earth, so the worst possible scenario. Did he check the Fey March bosses? I don't remember seeing that, but like the worst possible scenario for the seed is that Darkness is behind a rude Fey March boss. So this should be pretty easy from here on out, just to kind of get across the finish line, I would say.
And I do not believe I saw the Fey March bosses either. I think he went in, got to check the shops, and left.
Yeah, that's what chat is saying as well, and I didn't remember seeing them either. So yeah, I think from here on out, this is Eiklopfer's race to lose, and hopefully we'll see Aegis get underground here shortly and make the same check, make that package or that free Fey March key item check, which really just blew this seed wide open, and be able to keep pace here.
Yep, and I don't think I've seen Aegis reset out of his Nope Noodle. He's just taking his time.
It's definitely going to be a long, slow fight, but that stack of Cure 2 should be putting in a lot of work, as Eiklopfer heads right to Dwarf Castle, and we see a Mylon waiting for us as the first boss here. Amzal, I would say the rudest bosses that we could possibly see at this point would be Golbez or Wyvern, probably in the Fey March, although Golbez at the Luca key check is also pretty miserable.
Yep, and I would also say that finding a Valvalis somewhere would also be pretty miserable. I think Valvalis at Luca is almost worse.
Yeah, we do have a Cane though, so that was why I held that one out of my assessment. But yes, you're right. The Valvalis would be a pretty problematic boss if the runner did not know how to get through the fight without too much trouble.
Well, I tend to think of Valvalis as speedy and punching. I know she does do that ray when she's in her tornado form, but if you knock her out, she does just start swinging. And the Luca key evil wall spot is very much so a quick spot.
Yeah, I mean the missing piece of the puzzle that makes a lot of those bosses difficult would be a curse ring, which both of our runners have as well. So, I mean, really, as long as they, sort of know what they're doing. Oh my gosh, we got a double Mylon in Dwarf Castle. That's pretty great.
I think that would mean he's protecting the wrong staircase, right?
Is there a bridge in this crystal room that we're not seeing here?
Not that I know of. It's just the staircase.
That's pretty awesome, though, regardless. And they came in the proper order, so so well done there. I don't think Quake works on Mylon Z, but I could be, yeah. Either way, this spot's going to be fine. Just a little bit of a misfire there.
Yep, and it looks like our second character, our Dwarf Castle character, was another set.
We also had Aegis have to take a refight on Ogopogo here, so that's too bad.
It is too bad, but it looks like he's turned on random encounters again. It's going to take a little bit of experience, start working his way back through.
Second Cecil was not taken, no. Interestingly enough, I might have considered it the second Cecil because if you do get a Darkness Crystal here, you can go do a D-Machine grind, get a nice slingshot on that Cecil's XP, but that is something that we'll have to wait to see. And very nicely done there by Eiklopfer, and gets the Rat Tail as the reward. So it doesn't do much right now, but it is a key item. And meanwhile, Eiklopfer just needs one more point of progression here. Just needs that Darkness Crystal, and then there will be nothing standing in his way from finishing the seed here.
Nothing at all, but now the question becomes, you've had that tower key since the beginning. Do you go and check that, or do you continue scouring around the underworld for other?
Yeah, Eiklopfer was about to go do Sheila 1, and then maybe realizing that they have that tower key is going to go ahead and do the double check here in Tower or Lower Babel, which definitely to me makes the most sense to do next here.
Yeah, especially since you picked up that food. Most of these spots should be fairly easy.
Yeah, your Fu is full powered at this point. You have a Quake kit as well for backup. Yang is probably ramping up in damage. You've got really good melee. You kind of just want to crush this underground at this point and go for the highest efficiency, which I would say tower with tower key is the most efficient play that you could make right now.
Yep, a tower with tower key, or maybe even scrambling a couple of eggs just to get everyone a little bit safer to guarantee the experience that's going to come from these spots.
I actually like the I like holding off on the sirens now because ideally you would want to wait till you get 10 key items for double XP. It looks like Eiklopfer is sitting on 7 right now, so Assuming there's nothing too horribly rude between the tower and Feymarch. Oh, that's a pain man. Shouldn't be too hard to get those 10 key items, hopefully, before you head up to the moon.
It was a pain man talking to a mom bomb.
Indeed, and yeah, this is not going to be too scary with that full powered Fusoya. I'm sure that he'll be able to tank these three, no problem. Actually, looks like the majority of the party will be able to. So
Yep, it looks like the struggle here will be just keeping the kid on his feet so that he gets a portion of the experience.
yeah, nicely done there by Eiklopfer. You do want to get the XP on your party at this point, since he hasn't committed to slingshotting anyone. So you just want to get as much XP on your party as you can here while you accumulate these key items.
We see Aegis going back in on his Note Noodle, giving it another go now that he's got a little bit more experience on his character.
So I think at this point, about 25% of the seed has probably been run with the Costa del Sol music in the background. Does that sound about right, chat?
I would say our first check for my Eiklopfer was somewhere around 40 minutes, so it might even be a little bit more than that at this point.
That's pretty great, because they didn't really overlap either. I feel like Eiklopfer kind of did the thing, and then now Paladin Aegis is doing the thing as well. Picked up an Adamant at the top of tower there, so another key item. Half of an Excalibur, which would be really nice for Cecil. And then we've got the cowboy himself here in the tower key room, making things nice and slow at an otherwise really easy boss spot. So
Yep, the real trick here would be who's he going to eat. A couple of characters left alive would make this a little bit difficult, but if he skips the foo,
I think it'll be fine regardless, because any of these characters should be able to just one-shot our Golbez at this point. But yeah, we'll see who lives and who dies today. Yeah, and that's the reason why I didn't think this would be too bad as far as getting this done, because Golbez does not have good magic power here, in addition to not having hardly any hit points. So easy enough to take down there for Eiklopfer, and we will see when he gets to the bottom of the tower what he gets as his reward.
and a quick check over on Aegis's side, he seems to be having a much better go this time around against the Note Noodle. Keeping all of his characters topped up, doing some fairly decent damage at about 1,000 damage. And there goes his Note Noodle. Looks like he's going to be going underground soon.
Yeah, nicely done there. Regrouping and getting a little bit more XP, and I was going to be rewarded with that Magna Key. And nobody has exit. Feels bad, man. Or warp.
Gotta walk our way out of the cave, same as we had to walk our way out of the tower.
And Eiklopfer gets a pan out of that tower key check. So yeah, this is looking pretty good here. even if Eiklopfer doesn't get their Darkness Crystal right away, 10 key items, very much in sight with two free checks here coming up. So actually three. They have not done Sheila 1 yet, so they're going to get 3 more chances to get that 10th key item as well as the Darkness Crystal.
Indeed, and then we just hope that Aegis doesn't make the mistake of doing Sheila 1 as a stand, now that we know that the pan is hiding behind the tower key.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Aegis routes this, because again, I'm sure in his mind, probably feeling a little bit behind at this point. That's a Dragoon Spear for Kane, so we don't even need coffins to kill eggs now.
Nope, we can scramble them just fine with our fork. Or in this case, Dragoon Spear. And I honestly bet you Eiklopfer is thanking himself, turning around at the top of the stairs to do the tower key check.
Oh, absolutely. That was pretty good on his part to notice that he did have that tower key and make the adjustment, because the only thing worse than double dipping into the Sylph Cave is having to, or I should say Fabul Castle, is to have to do that dreaded triple dip, so...
Agreed. The only thing there would be, it's not just the dreaded triple dip, but knowing you had the key item before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we see Eiklopfer buying a single Soma drop to get Fu up to 200 M.
Yeah, having that nice round 200 is beneficial for tons and tons of different reasons. There's a lot of really useful spells that Fu has that basically come in multiples of 25, whether it is weak. Oh, there's the Darkness Crystal. And a Crystal Sword.
Oh boy. Well, now our Cecil's online and doing some serious damage.
Yeah, this... I don't want to count Aegis out right away, but this is Eiklopfer's race to lose at this point. I mean, he has the two best damage output machines in the format, in Fusoya and Crystal Sword Cecil, and Gomode is right in front of him. I can't imagine anything getting in the way here, but we'll still see what happens. Also interesting to note a couple things here. So first of all, the Darkness Crystal was Sheila 1, so technically none of that tower was required. Granted, you don't necessarily get a Cecil out of the deal, but for Aegis, if Aegis is playing this with getting those free checks in mind here, could potentially go to the Fame Arch, get the package, get his Sand Ruby and his Cane, do Dwarf Castle and do Sheila 1 and be off to the moon with that Darkness Crystal. So this is definitely a situation where if Aegis makes all of the right plays, could really close this gap here. I just don't know if he is going to make those decisions, because it's not, it's not really the kind of thing that you would necessarily do, especially if you were feeling behind.
No, and especially not after taking you more than an hour to get under, blocked by a Nope Noodle, knowing your opponent had to get through it as well, but at the same time, you're now thinking that they did it some way that was much easier.
Yeah, and immediately going to grind some eggs, which again, can't fault them for doing that at all. You've been struggling so mightily to get through fights. Both of our runners have, and then you've got that basically free XP right there in front of you. I can't blame Aegis for doing this right now.
Nope, and he got Quake, and it looks like he's still going to keep Scramble. Yeah,
and Eiklopfer just doing eggs here on Earth. I mean, I believe that back in the day, we basically tested this out, and it is a little bit faster to do eggs than to grind on the moon if you have the ability to one-shot them either with sirens, or excuse me, with coffins, or this dragoon spear that Kane is wielding. So this is definitely the fastest grind option. Considering you really don't need at this point, honestly, Eiklopfer could go. You don't need to do overkill here. Palom doesn't really need nuke, which may be what he's going for. We'll see when he decides to actually stop and go to the moon. But basically, you just need Cecil and Fu to be able to survive those big bangs, and that's about it. So.
Yep, and I did note at least one elixir picked up from a chest, so Fu does have the spare MP to make it.
Yeah, I think he was just burning through a stack of sirens there because that was his last siren, and now I think we'll see him head off to the moon. So, or maybe go buy more sirens. Okay.
Yeah, Simbo pointing out in chat that it's about equal with one-shotting, but if you do the new Ice 2 strat, it could be faster to do reuse by getting that second life off.
Yeah, it also kind of just depends on how much XP you actually need, because like I don't think Eiklopfer really needs to do this much grind, but that's kind of the decision that he's decided to make, which is totally fine and justified. But yeah, if you really only needed, like, let's say 1 or 2 fights, I could see those Ice 2 strats probably being a little bit faster. But I mean, if you're in the position where it's like, I need to either do 15 eggs or 6 reuse, that was kind of the situation where you're testing, and the eggs were faster back in the day. So
Eiklopfer opting to buy 2 cat claws instead of buying more sirens. I think he's thinking he's online to go to the moon.
yeah, if that's the preparations that he's making, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Because I don't think Zeromus is going to pose much of a challenge here, as well as the that whatever boss is waiting at the Vanilla Masamune altar. Kind of interesting here. This isn't a situation we see all that often, but he can actually just go fight that Vanilla Masamune boss and then go straight to Zeromus if he wants to.
Now, having not played the vanilla game myself, which altar is the Vanilla Masamune spot? Is that Ogopogo? Or
Yes, it's the Ogopogo spot. So basically, the last one before you go to Zeromus.
So you could feasibly go and check which boss is there, and if it's something very easy, be willing to take the reset out if Zeromus is rude to you the first time, and just continue walking after checking it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if I was in Eiklopfer's position, I would have actually gone straight to the moon and checked to see if that was a free boss rather than do grind beforehand. But again, it's all kind of, runner preference at this point. But I mean, there's a situation Eiklopfer could find where he goes up there and gets like the Dark Imps or something in that spot, and that would have been all the XP that he would have needed before going to Zeromus anyway. So, I mean, it doesn't really look like it's going to matter too much in this situation, but that is definitely probably a more efficient way to do things, considering that you have that crystal sword and you just don't need that much XP at this point.
Agreed. And we are going to see our character check here in a minute, but more importantly, we're going to see what the naming word is.
Not Bacchus wine, which is probably the only thing that Eiklopfer cares about at this point.
Yep, and I don't know how much he cares about it, but if he finds the hook on accident, he might save it just to go and check and see Evelyn Cave has wine for sale.
You never know. But again, I do kind of... Zeromus is toast at this point. You just got to get there, I think. Yeah, as Simbu points out in chat, and I agree. And if you haven't really done it a whole lot, I mean, you might not feel as comfortable with this, but I mean, Fusoya and Crystal Sword Cecil can duo Zeromus, no problem. We get an edge with the awesome Naruto sprite by Scala Kitty there. No thanks, but thank you for at least being able to check that awesome sprite work there.
Yep. And now I'm curious to see where Eiklopfer starts checking and if he saved. Did you notice if he bought any more sirens while he was down in the underground?
I don't think so, no. But I think he's just gonna beeline it straight for the bottom of the moon here. Probably save, go check that Masamune spot. He may come back to resave, or he may just go straight to Zeromus. I'm not sure. So Aegis did his dwarf castle, so got that objective number 5 done. And it also has the rat tail now and is heading up the tower. This is good. This is gonna push Aegis in the direction of getting that darkness crystal. But we know as well that the only thing he actually needs to do at this point is to just go to the Fame Arch and get the package out of the free chest. So.
Yep. And then he'd have to go check that package, which I think is almost the daunting thing. I know I, for one, am never the first one to jump up and down and buy myself a package check with my time, unless I'm looking for any more characters.
I mean, of course, we know that that's the missing piece, but yeah, like, I mean, if you're not in a character hunt like this, you probably don't want to see the package. But in this situation, I suspect that would be something Aegis would be pretty happy to see when he gets it. And our Ogopogo boss is Plague. Okay. Shouldn't be too bad, just needs to get his berserks set up. I'm not 100% sure about this agility situation, but berserk should be fine. We'll see what the agility situation ends up looking like going into Zeromus as well. But basically, the way the plague fight works is as long as you have a fast enough character with berserk, the countdown to 10 just basically will not go off. So.
Looks like he is definitely opting to virus his kid just in case and throw a life potion.
Yeah, this is kind of like the backup. Oh, and Kane goes down. So Kane was the one that was throwing that. Kane was the one that was throwing that life potion. Eiklopfer, if you gotta just take a moment here, probably take a little bit of a deep breath. I'm sure the adrenaline is really pumping right now. You got that curse ring. You don't have it on anybody right at the moment, so that would basically make this fight free as long as you put a curse ring anchor in the middle and got a berserk on someone as well.
Agreed. It would be a good thing. I think personally I would want to put it on my kid because he's probably the slow.
Yeah, that would be my choice as well, is to be using Palom as my anchor here. Because again, you didn't even get him up to those nuke levels anyway, so he's kind of the ideal choice to be wearing the curse ring right now. I think this is going to play out just fine now because of the using the life potions to keep his team getting refilled here, but hopefully no further issues here for Eiklopfer.
Ooh, having his cane jump at 0 is going to be an interesting land. And we see Aegis is finding his Dark Knight Pain Man. shouldn't have too much of a problem getting through this. Yang has almost 2100 hit points at this point.
Yep, so he should be on his way to his Darkness Crystal soon, and hopefully won't skip that package check, or that free Fame Arch check as well, before heading up to the moon. So.
Yep, and it looks like, from Eiklopfer's point of view, he's having just enough people go down to continuously refresh that count.
Yep, no problem there, and ready to go. We will be getting his crystal soon, and we'll be in go mode. So, with an Artemis bow for anyone who's keeping track at home. But yeah, let me just quickly remind everybody: you're watching the Fabul Gauntlet, and this is our final day of the 5 Swiss rounds today. So we've been doing this thing for 5 whole weeks already. I think I saw something like we've had about 70 restreamed matches so far. Most of those VODs are available for you on YouTube as well if you want to get caught up. And next week, we will have the play-in stage. We should have 8 matches that are going to match up some of our 3 and 2 competitors in a single race knockout mode, basically, to see who makes those final bracket spots. And then starting after that, we will have our round of 32 all the way down to a final in another 5 weeks' time, I want to say. And Zaru, we do have a really important question that we need to ask as Eiklopfer is headed to Zeromus. Do you want to do the honors this morning?
I would love to do the honors. Whose butt are we going to kick today? For those of you who are new to the community, I went over this at the beginning when we were doing our package check and seeing this. And again, when we were going over music, we have a third randomization point where we don't change any of Zeromus's abilities or stats, but we do like to change his sprite a little bit and see who we can get for a fun and interesting end boss here.
Yeah, so get your guesses out in chat there. I'm seeing some good guesses there. I think there's a lot. There's several hundred Zeromus sprites at this point, so. I don't see this fight being a problem for Eiklopfer with that Crystal Sword Cecil. He did put Palom in the middle with that Curse Ring. Fu should be able to handle the healing and Zerking, so as long as he doesn't get too aggressive, should be able to take this home here.
Very much so. This should be a fairly straightforward, at the very least, triple Zerker and potentially quad Zerker, depending on what he did with that Artemis. But
there would be a way to get a little bit of extra mileage out of Palom, but... Or Fu if you were feeling very brave. Apocamus. I am guessing that is an X-Men or Marvel sprite.
I do believe that is an X-Men sprite.
That's pretty sweet. It's almost like too tall for the battle screen there. But yeah, we're off to the races here. Meanwhile, Aegis has picked up their Darkness Crystal and Crystal Sword, so should be well on his way to making it through the rest of this seed without too much trouble, and hopefully that will be a good development for them to be able to get this thing done expeditiously after such a difficult early game.
Very much so. Aegis does still have to take the time to find his pack. But that was a free check, and then when he takes the chance to check it, he will be in go mode faster than he realized.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, we see Eiklopfer here. Nerfed that first big bang. Everybody survives. The team is either fighting or gotten berserked up at this point, and it's just a matter of whittling through Zeromus's 120,000 hit points or so. We do see Aegis going straight to the moon, which is unfortunately not the decision that we want to see here. But we'll see how long he stays up there.
And today with a pleasant reminder in chat to check your freebie. You never know what's going to be hiding in a box or what somebody might be holding. In this case, Sheila 1 was holding the Darkness Crystal. But you forget to check the Fame Arch and you will forget to find that one extra key item spot that's a free grab for everybody.
Yeah, and again, and it was pointed out in chat as well, like this is a perfectly reasonable decision because you know that you get a character check here on the moon, as well as access to that Masamune altar spot. So I can't blame Aegis for going up here, but it is too bad that we know that the 2 of the 3 remaining objectives are all at that one spot in the Fame Arch, unfortunately.
And Palom survives the second big bang over on Eiklopfer's side. So, looks like the Berserkers are swinging away. Oh, and he has rocks.
Okay, Fu dodged. I was gonna say I'm a little worried what this Fu is casting though, because it seemed like it was taking a while. But yeah, should be fine here. Got the Cure 4 off. If it was going for like some Meteo swag or something, maybe not. But yeah, we're good. And that is GG's for Get your GG's out in chat, everybody. Eiklopfer goes to 4-1 on the event, and we'll see if we can get him in here for an interview shortly.
And while we have that going on, we do have Aegis finding his edge. I didn't personally see if he picked him up, but we know that that's not the character he thinks he's looking for.
Just a quick reminder as well, please make sure to give both of our runners a follow. They are up bright and early on this Sunday morning for your entertainment, and they could really use that additional level of support. We have got, aside from myself and Zaro here in the booth, we've got Dothis on the restream this morning and Antidale doing all of the tracking. So it takes quite a few people to put these races on for everybody. And we've really been enjoying being able to restream them for y'all. So give us a little bit of love and support as well. We do really appreciate being able to show the game off for you, though, and I hope everybody's having a good morning so far today.
Most definitely, and don't forget to check Moonblaze Wolf. Don't forget to check the runners. We all like to throw support around here, and there are many people in this community who will go through the paces just to make sure that everyone has a good time with no need for any sort of personal gain. It's a great feeling to be a part of this community. I know I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and another interesting thing after today for a lot of us, although not for everybody, because I did mention there's those 2 play-in matches that are, or not 2, there's a week of play-in matches. There's going to be, I believe, 8 total play-in matches that'll be coming your way this next week. We're going to do our best to get all of 8 of those restreamed for y'all, so you can check them all out. They're going to be really hype and exciting matches. They will be using the same flag set that we have been using for the Swiss rounds. However, once we get to the bracket stages, there will be a new set of flags. It's still the 5 objectives, but it will be a little bit more challenging for the runners. Uh, the shop and loot settings will be bumped up to the pro level, as well as the runners will only get 7 characters as opposed to the full complement of characters that we see in these current runs. And then shop items will only, when you sell items in shops, they will only sell for a quarter of their current price. So those 4 changes will make for a much more difficult and much more interesting for you all run, hopefully.
Yep, and it looks like we are winding down here with Aegis. He's picked up his patch. I don't know that he's going to check it right away.
And it does look like also we're joined by Eiklopfer here in the voice chat. So Eiklopfer, GG's on the win, and congrats on going to 4-1 and making it to the brackets.
Hey, great. Thanks a lot. It was really fun seed there. A little interesting, bit of a rough start, but really picked up around the middle of it.
Yeah, that was definitely a tale of 2 seeds, I would say. There was a definite front half to that seed and then a definite back half to that seed. How are you feeling as you were progressing through the first part of that seed, finding all those difficult bosses in places like the Baron Inn and Fabul Castle and Twin Harp?
I was definitely a little, disheartening. Felt like I was definitely falling behind there that entire time. I ate many more wipes than I wanted to. At first, I actually felt like it was going to be okay. I got Paladin. He's pretty good with that level 2 elemental magic for those early bosses. But of course, I run into Pale Dim. I run into Bygone. I run into the Magus Sisters. Just things I can't go ahead and throw my magic at. It really just slowed me down. And yeah, I really, really thought I was way behind. So when I finally did hit that package and just everything kind of clicked together there, I just was sprinting towards the end, having no idea how close I was.
Yeah, the package really was kind of the turning point in the seed, because it not only gave you your cane, but it also led directly to the Fusoya through the Demus that was guarding that cane. So it really did kind of just accelerate the seed in ways that I don't think any of us was really expecting it to kind of take off like that. And then you got the crystal sword for your Cecil, and you were pretty much good to go. So were you still kind of feeling that pressure towards the end as things really did click into place, as you put it?
I really was, like, all the way right to the end. I was contemplating, should I do even 1 or 2 more, egg smashes before I go? Did I have enough levels left? Did I... just the entire time in that sea fight, I was just keeping an eye on chat, seeing if I was going to be beat to that done.
Yeah, but you managed to pull out the win today. You go to 4-1. Thoughts on those the bracket flags? Are you excited? Any particular people that you wanna play coming out of that 3-2 group that's pretty much formed at this point?
Not any specific one. I'll be interested to see who I get to match up with. I think we could. Maybe there'll be some rematches from earlier on. That could be fun. But otherwise, nope. I'm just happy to get into the next set of rounds, and I really do have to practice those seeds. They're going to be a fair amount harder, and I really haven't given them a shot yet, so I'll definitely be ramping up over those in the next week.
Yeah, well, it'll be nice that you get a whole week here to just sit back and relax, watch those play-in matches that are going to be coming up in the upcoming week, and then get ready for brackets. So GG's again, congrats on the win, and any final closing thoughts before we get you out of here for the rest of your day?
Thanks for the GG's, and as always, thank you to everyone for just putting together all this, all the administrators for the entire football gauntlet, the commentators, the streamers, everything. It's been a lot of fun doing this, and so thanks a lot for putting all this together.
Absolutely. And we'll see if we'll, it looks like Aegis did choose to, go ahead and end their run after seeing that done come in. We do have him in here for an interview. So Aegis, GG's, that was a really rough seed. Sorry you had to endure the nastiness that Dothis rolled for you today. How are you feeling right now?
can you hear me? Am I in the right setup?
Yep, we can hear you. Did you hear my question okay?
No, not all of it. Could you say it again?
Yeah, absolutely. Just was mentioning that this was a really rough seed that got rolled for you all this morning, and sorry you had to kind of go through that, but general thoughts and feelings on how you're doing right now?
Well, first, like, out of everybody here who, like, has experience and rolls a lot of seeds, is there anyone who doesn't roll complete garbage? Because, like, all of you have given me, like, my worst seed until the next time. Like, the last 3 in a row were, like, the worst that I've seen. But it turns out, no, they weren't, because the next week is worse.
That's just how it goes sometimes, but yeah, that was a particularly nasty seed. A lot of early bosses that didn't line up with the party members that you had. No white mages. Yeah,
No white mages is difficult, but I mean, I saw those tier 2s. I bought extra. I was all set. I hate Edward. Edward's terrible. People say he has utility and there are strats and everything, but like that, like any other character but Edward, even Attila without magic, and that seed would have been so much easier.
Yeah, well, I will just say there was, in defense of Edward, I'm going to jump in here for a second, and both of you struggled with that evil wall fight at Baron Inn, and that is actually one of the bosses that Edward does have a little bit of utility against, but it is one of those sort of edge cases that not everybody knows. So like I said, both of you really struggled with, honestly, a lot of those fights. I think Eiklopfer probably had to reset out of all the fights that you did. I'm struggling to think what the major difference was.
Probably his wipes were 1 or 2, and I had several at each.
Yeah, I just think he was able to pull that magma key out. Zaru, go ahead.
I want to say I think that the major difference here was only in the order in which things were done. I noticed that I think Eiklopfer did 1 check or checked 1 extra chest. I noticed that you reset out of Antlion seeing an apple.
Yeah, that was primarily to save my
experience.
The grimoire. It wasn't worth the.
I do want to say though that you made some great use of those grimoires. You re-rolling when you get a resetting if it's not the one that you're looking for to get through the fight. Definitely not a bad thing to do when you have a grimoire early.
Yeah, and I think maybe what one other thing. I don't know if I obviously I haven't seen the restream. I'll look at it. It's the first thing I'll do as soon as it's up. But I don't know if Ike made use of that curse ring, but I really don't understand how that works, and especially when I'm using like a low-level Edward. He shouldn't have that much agility. I'm putting it on him, and it seemed like, like it was so much worse. Like, every time I took it off, set the battle speed back up to 1, no curse, or drop the battle speed, whatever, but no curse ring. It seemed like it was easier. So, like, there's definitely I don't know, some learning to be done there, but again, I blame Edward, because when I use any other person with a curse ring, it doesn't seem like it's that bad.
Yeah, I would just say go ahead and watch the restream when you get a chance, because we did talk about the curse string stuff as well, not just with you, but with Eiklopfer as well, because that is a very fine point of learning for anybody who's learning to run this randomizer. So again, it's definitely just one of those things that comes with time, and I know that this was, or I believe this was kind of like the first major event for you. So I really hope you enjoyed the experience. I hope you got a lot out of it, and I hope you join us again for our next major community event like this.
Yeah, I was in the Hummingway one, but this is much better because you guys had the Swiss stuff that is like new person friendly, and I know when the Link to the Past Zelda randomizer, when they do those, it always seems like it's a lot of fun. But yeah, no, this was like one of my first ones, and I'll definitely be back for the next one. And I didn't. I mean, like, I don't like forfeiting. I would have played the seed, but I didn't even make it to the point where I was able to choose between clearing the Earth or the Moon, so it was like it wouldn't have mattered where the jet seed happened, like what was the strategy. I don't even know where anything was that I needed. I think I needed the Sand Ruby and the Macedonian spot plus Kane, so I still needed a character, an item, and a location, so it wasn't like it was really worth my time to keep going. I generally do try to complete the whole seed, so I learned as much as I could, but clearly the beginning of the seed was where all the learning was to be done.
Just be safe.
Yeah,
fam.
without spoiling it for you, in case you do want to go check it out and play it, finish it later. I think you were a little closer than you realized, given what you had when you ended your run. But yeah, it was a really, really tricky seed, especially early on, and it was rough for both of you. I feel for both of you because it was a rude boss after rude boss, and kudos for hanging in there and making it through to get to the end here, and thanks for letting us restream you today as well, because I know it was kind of
Yeah, no
last
problem.
minute. Zaru, anything you want to add before we head on out here today?
Nope, I just wanted to say that at the end of the day, you did get through some of the most notable, difficult spots in that seed, even if it did take you a couple of tries. I know I myself am the kind of finds I get to a point and just get frustrated and start making worse and worse, and instead you went back every time and got better and better. So keep that in mind as you go through your next couple of runs, and I would expect that you are going to find that you are on the other end of the spectrum come the end of a Swiss round or the end of an opening bracket.
Well, thanks. I do try to learn as much as I can. It just seems like I'm not really getting anywhere, especially when fights like that where I'm banging my head against the wall. But I mean, if you quit and you don't get through it, then you don't learn anything from it. And I'd rather learn something with my loss than not, because I still got the loss. So you might as well get something out of it. And yeah, the restreaming thing, it kind of bothered me at first. I was wasn't too good with it. I was figuring, like I was playing worse because of it, but I got used to it over the whole set of Swiss. So it's not so bad once you get used to it.
Yeah, it definitely takes a little bit of time to get used to, but I'm glad you were able to kind of make that adjustment. And yeah, I'll just kind of mention for everybody, including you, that this is an excellent learning seed for a lot of tricky situations that can come up early on in your Final Fantasy IV free enterprise runs. So a lot to learn, a lot to practice out of this, and everybody is going to get better at the end of the day the more they practice and watch people solve the puzzles that this game can throw at them. So thanks again, Aegis, and we appreciate you sharing your race with us today.
No problem. Just one real quick thing. I generally don't make much use of the like supporting items, maybe like the Silk Web and the Star Veil, because they're kind of necessary, but a lot of the others I don't. But this seed, I definitely was kind of proud of myself for keeping in mind that I had attack items, that I had the illusion that get me through. Again, not so much with the Curse Ring, but like a lot of that is a good learning experience if you can finally figure out how to make the best use of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where necessity is the mother of invention, I think is the saying. And when you get put in those tough spots, it does sort of put you out of your comfort zone a little bit and make you think about things that you wouldn't have otherwise done. So yeah, I'm sure you learned a lot of stuff today that you don't even necessarily realize at this moment, but I think you'll remember and be able to incorporate into future runs. So
thanks a lot. I'm looking forward to the next tournament, and I'll be doing the occasional race until then, but I guess I'll take it easy now.
Sounds good, and thanks again. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in this morning on RPG Limit Break. We will have another race coming up this evening, I believe at 7 p.m. Eastern. That'll be on twitch.tv/freeenterprise. Again, go ahead and give our runners a follow. They put on a great show for you today. Go ahead and please give us a follow on the commentary and restream and tracking side as well. We really appreciate it. We're working really hard to get these races broadcast for you so you can check out this awesome event that's going on. And we are going to raid over to a fellow community member, Natara, who is doing practice. I believe they are practicing with these exact flags that we were just watching in the race this morning. So we're going to send you on over to Natara and have a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll see you tonight for more Fabul Gauntlet action.